Hey there, business animals. It's Kim with Be More Business, and welcome to the Business Animal Podcast. I am here today with Christa Hines of the Business Storytelling Studio. And I actually met Christa a long time ago. You and I had lunch like ages ago, didn't we? Like we met at that little Starbucks right by our Chipotle, somewhere right over there in that little off of State Line Highway. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I had forgotten about that. I feel like you've been in my life so long, I don't remember the time when you were not.
That's so awesome. I love that. I love that. And I love that you're in
Yeah.
my life too for around that. But I remember we talked, it was right after or right before I got my certification as an equine gestaltist. And I remember
Mhm.
you were one of the first people to come down here and experience a session with the horses. And that takes a ton of bravery. So kudos to you, my friend, for doing that. Um,
Well, yeah, I'm always curious. I'm always wanting to learn about these kinds of things, and what you're doing out there is magical stuff. So, I mean, I really enjoyed it.
That's great. Well, you have some superpowers that I think my audience is going to be really interested in learning about. So, would you introduce yourself? Tell us about who you are and about the Business Storytelling Studio and what you do through that business.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today. This is a lot of fun. I'm thrilled to be here, Kim. So, my name is Christa Hines. I'm the owner of the Business Storytelling Studio, and I'm a content strategist and writer who partners with health and wellness professionals to create clear, engaging content that connects with their audience. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. I work with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs primarily, helping them really get their messaging targeted so that they're able to connect with the right people at the right time.
That is so key to building your business and bringing the right people to your door. Messaging is everything, right? It's the foundation on which all of your success gets built on around your brand. So, yeah, that's amazing. So, do you work directly with business owners and helping them figure out their stories? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, typically I work directly with, I almost always work with the business owner, mostly because I work with a lot of heart centered entrepreneurs primarily. So, entrepreneurs are pretty much doing everything in their business. And a lot of times they're looking for somebody to lift some of the weight off of so they can be free to do other things with their business, whether that's, really dialing into working one on one with their clients. So, what I do is I usually go take them through an onboarding type of experience where I really try to dig in and understand, you know, all about their business, what their goals are, and then work to align those goals with their content so that their messaging is aligned from, no matter where they're showing up, whether it's on websites, on social media, in their email campaigns, presentations, all those areas where they're talking about their business, to make sure that they are being consistent with their messaging, and also in a way that really reflects who they are as individuals, so they're able to kind of dial in, how they're differentiating themselves through the work they're doing, um, and really bringing their personality out. I try to do that a lot. And with small businesses, that's something that we get to do more of, which is fun to really kind of dial into that brand voice that they're trying to develop, and carry that through everything.
I think that the fact that you're working holistically with all of these different content avenues and making sure that the messages and narratives and stories that are told are cohesive over all of those different avenues is something that a lot of businesses who don't have someone like you in their lives miss out on. So people will get one story from YouTube, they'll get another story from their website, another story if they happen to see them on a stage somewhere, and being able to help people cohese that across all of those formats plus all of the others that you can utilize, it really does unite the message in a way that makes it So key and important. How did you get into doing this? Like, what is your journey in getting into being able to have such a interesting way of working with businesses?
Yeah, the $1,000,000 question, how did you get here? It's a long, windy road. I won't bore you with all the details, but I started out really in the PR and marketing world. I worked for a lot of nonprofits. I worked in the agency world, kind of ended up in I ended up in the hospital system, a large hospital system. And one of the things I really did, particularly in the hospital system, was I was in media relations. So I worked a lot with news reporters, journalists, really helping them craft stories, access sources within the system to provide information to people about public health issues and all kinds of different things. It was a fascinating job. But one of the things we really had to be focused on was making sure that we were in alignment with the mission of the hospital and as far as messaging, and everybody was sharing those same messaging points. And it's a lot trickier with a really large hospital system. But I just found that really fascinating to really dial into, you know, being clear about your talking points. I did work a lot with physicians on, doing some media training. I had to go through media training myself, which was an interesting experience. Um, but that's kind of what led me to. So well, let's put it this way: we moved from. I that happened. I was up in Omaha, Nebraska at the time, where I worked for a healthcare system, and then we moved our family to Kansas City. And I decided what I really, really loved about the media relations was helping to build the stories. And I wanted to be writing the stories. So I started writing for publications at that point, writing for Kansas City Parent, Kansas City Baby, and eventually to some of the more national publications like Parents Magazine, Women's Day. I write a lot for Vibrant Health Magazine, which I still write for them. That's always a lot of fun. And I just really love being able to tell stories around health and wellness and helping people live a healthier life. So that's kind of where my journey took me. And then I started having people asking me if I could help them with their website content. And so it was kind of interesting to have these two worlds sort of come together where I was able to use my storytelling skills and my background in PR and marketing and weave those together and help business owners really craft that story and their messaging, whether that was through websites or presentations or whatever that they wanted, whatever their goal was that they wanted to do. So that's sort of how I ended up here in this place.
So, story is at the basis, and when I think of your name and I think of you, I think of story. I think of you as a writer. I see you as a writer. I know that it's the stories that you tell go beyond the messaging stories that are in businesses, that you have a fiction book in the works, that you tell all kinds of stories. And um, what does that mean for a brand to have a business story? Like, how do they even wrap their head around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the best definition I have seen is, your business story is defined as the use of narrative to connect your brand with your target audience by highlighting shared values. That's kind of the definition I have found about what a brand business story is. So the beauty of story is we all lean in when we hear a story. When we go and listen to a speaker or any kind of our brains thrive on story, and we've evolved that way. Um, that's how we taught our children, how to be careful and the lessons we've learned along the way. And, back when we were cave dwellers, we were telling stories with pictures and sharing them around the campfire, where to find food, all of those little things. And story just has a way of activating the brain. It even has releases like oxytocin, that love hormone. It makes us care about whatever we're hearing about the people involved. So one of the things that really makes story a really cool thing to do with business is it's telling not only the business person's story or the business's story, but also how that connects to the customer journey and what the customer or client is looking for. How are they solving a problem? And you can do that in lots of different ways. You can, it's not only just sharing a long bio about the business, but it's also talking about the business's values and how they align with the people they're trying to reach, their target audience. And that's why testimonials are so powerful, and case studies, all that social proof that we tend to look for. We're a skeptical people. We want to know, will this work for me? And can I see myself in this? And will they be able to solve this particular problem? Or will they be able to help me achieve this particular desire? Those are usually the reasons why people buy. And a lot of times, I think we tend to buy things based a lot of times not only just on logic and facts, but also on how something makes us feel.
Absolutely. Well, you've been to my sales training. You're one of a small population of humans that has been to my live sales training. And my biggest selling, like what I try to get people do when they're selling is to start asking questions and helping the person they're selling to build the narrative around the product or service that's being sold, solving the problem that they're facing. And if we think about how a story is structured, right? There's the heroine or hero is going along, then they face a conflict, they have
Hmm.
to overcome that conflict, and then they walk out of the story with a greater resolution. And so it's that whole humpy curve of the story, and it's so important for in that system of being able to tell stories of how did other people solve the problem. And what's interesting to me is that when I went through and interviewed people about this very podcast, when I did all my interviews. As a matter of fact, you were one of the lucky interviewees for that project that I'm still working on. But um when I talk to people, I ask them, have you interacted with my content? What did you like and what did you not like? Because I did change the format of this show. And the people that had listened to the new show and interacted with it, which was very new at the time that I asked that question, were like, I love hearing the stories. I like hearing how other entrepreneurs have faced problems in their business or faced challenges or solved a certain thing that we all have to solve. That helps me learn faster. And
Hmm.
I think there's proof everywhere. There's proof in all parts of our lives that story is by far more impactful than telling somebody something. Showing it to them, letting them feel the way through it, and then allowing them to come to their own resolution is such an important part of the process for the buyer. That was a
I
lot to
completely,
unpack in one thing, but
yeah.
yeah.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think, you talked about the hero or heroine of the story. That's really our client or customer. And a lot of times, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see companies make where they're positioning themselves as the hero when really
It's the
your
customer.
customer is
Yeah.
your protagonist in any story, and you're just there to help guide them to. That's really the simplest way to explain it, I think, is we're, as business owners, we're helping guide people to where they want to go ultimately on this journey of, whatever step they need to accomplish, that we're able to help them accomplish in this particular journey. Then, I think that's for me what makes what I do meaningful. And I think that's what makes it meaningful for a lot of the business owners that I know and work with.
So that makes me think of the hero's journey. And I'm sure you're
Hmm.
familiar with that. And so I'm curious because I have my concept of where the business, like I totally agree with you. We as the business owners are definitely not the hero, heroine, protagonist. We're not that. We are not the main character, but we do have a position in that hero's journey. I'm not going to tell you mine because I'm curious as about what's yours. Who do you think in the hero's journey the business owner really shows up as?
Do you mean as the guide or?
Well, like, yeah, like what? Because you have like the sage, you have the villain. I mean, there's a definite
Oh,
cast of characters in that hero's journey. Who do you think the business owner is most effective showing up as on those that cast of characters? There's always the friend, the confidant buddy that comes along. I mean, there's a whole cast of characters that we get to see in every movie and every story that we have. It's those archetypes. Who do you think that the business owner should show up as?
honestly, I think it can vary depending on the business, but I would hope that the business owner isn't showing up as the villain.
Oh, please, yes, I hope so too. Yes. None of you be the villain out there.
That's right. I think it's really, for me, I've always associated more as sort of, I like the word sage, but I also think we're not. I don't think we also want to put ourselves on a pedestal either, because many of us are learning this. We're on our own journeys too. Um, but I think a lot of times what we're offering is a sense of understanding, because maybe we have been there, maybe we identify with our audience in some way, or even if we haven't been in that exact position, we understand what they're going through and we have created this solution that could help them get to, reach to wherever they're going next. Um, so I think sometimes we are just, and I don't know that what term you're thinking of within the hero's journey, and I can't pull that one, like a particular label out of my hat. But I do think there's just, it's almost like, I mean, let's talk about Star Wars. We have like
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everybody's seen Star Wars, so I'll just use that one. And, he was sort of the guide, or even Yoda was the guide for Luke Skywalker to help him, go through his mission. Um, so I think being able to have that a little bit of extra information or expertise that we're looking for. Like when I hire a coach, I'm looking for that person to have just a little bit more expertise or know the road a little clearer to help me get clear on where to go next and how to take my business next. I don't think you give all your power away to somebody that you've hired. I definitely believe in collaborations and partnerships when you're working with people. And so I almost think of them as a collaborator more than anything.
I love that. I love the collaborator part. And after you got to talking, like I had a really clear idea. Like I see a lot of the businesses I work with as that guide, right? As the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the business of that particular whatever it is that they're selling. But the truth is that I think that's brand specific. I work with a lot of, like you do, health and wellness, very mission-based type businesses. And
Hmm.
even my animal-based business owners who listen to this podcast, they're all very mission-based. Many times they're in it to be the sage wisdom for the pet owner, horse owner, whomever they're working with, or for the animal themselves, which, and for many people, that's the hero in their story, right? So, but at the end of the day, I think it's brand specific because I also work with brands that want to show up and be the buddy. I'm here. I'm going to walk next to you. I'm going to cheerlead you through this
Hmm.
process. And so they're the Han Solo of
Yeah,
the
that's a good point.
situation.
I love
And
that. Hmm.
yeah, and yet other businesses show up as maybe even Chewbacca that are like they fix the technology and keep everything running smoothly and grumble a lot if things don't go right.
I
And
love that.
so
Let's
yeah,
take this metaphor all the way home, right?
you bet. Let's do it. Let's do it. We just don't want
No,
you
but
to
you're
be
so
Darth
right.
Vader.
That's right.
So I would love to hear from anybody out there who's listened to this crazy metaphor. What Star Wars character does your business show up as in your branding? Like, who are you for your customers? Who are you for Luke? If
How
Luke is
fun
your
is that? I
customer,
love
who
that.
are you? I adore it. But also, in a very real sense, even though both of us could probably belabor that metaphor for another 20 minutes, in a very real sense of how you craft the stories for your business, if you don't know who your customer is and you don't understand what part your business and you are playing in their journey in context to whatever you're doing, it's really hard to tell those narratives. It's really hard to make stories that connect. So I know
Absolutely.
you have some components that you talk about when it comes to business storytelling. Would you share those?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think there's this tendency, just to kind of take a step back here. I think there is a tendency to, we want to throw all of these facts out at people to show them the statistics and the research and all of our expertise, which is great. I think there's a time and place for that information. I think, like any type of story we're telling, it should be couched within a narrative of some kind. As far as I often like to steer businesses into really telling about who they are, how they help, what the problem is. But you're right about when you mentioned audience. Audience is huge. That's probably one of the first things I really dig into with my clients is, understanding exactly who their audience is. What are the words your audience uses when they're talking about your product or service? What are the words they use when they talk about the frustrations that they're dealing with? What's keeping them up at night? Those pain points that you can help resolve with whatever your service or product is. Those are things we really try to dig into. I think, again, having the social proof piece, having a bio. I remember I was in conversation with somebody years ago, and they're like, "Well, bios are dead. Nobody writes bios anymore about their business or who they are, who's behind the business." And I think maybe that depends on the business. For the business owners I work with, I think a bio is really important because I think people want to know who they're doing business with. And I'm feeling like that's happening more than ever. People want to know, who the business person, who the people are behind the business, who's making this machine run, and what do they care about, what are their values to, and how do those values align to the customer. Whether you need to get totally in the weeds in that, not necessarily, but I think just for people to get a sense of who you are, and that you can relate to them, and create those connections. Content marketing is a little bit different than copywriting. A lot of times I get called a copywriter. Copywriting is really about promotional writing, advertising, and that sort of thing. Content writing to me is more about building relationship through your work, through your writing, so that you are engaging in a way where you're creating an opportunity for conversation and engagement and really getting to know the people that you want to do business with. So those are some of the elements I really try to focus on when I start working with a client, just understanding who they are, what their mission is, what their goals are, and then finding creative ways to create content that does, help them engage with the people they want to reach.
So I know one of the questions that I run into a lot is people are struggle with writing. So it's one of the reasons I think that AI tools, which we won't get into the weeds about, our feelings around that, because we'll just be on a commiseration rant for God knows how long around that. But I think it's one of the things that people are looking in all kinds of ways to figure out how to write their stories. And I also feel like people feel pressured to feed the content machine, right?
Hmm.
It is an ever hungry beast that requires a lot of feeding. And what I want to talk about and get your opinions and feelings around are some concepts around anchor content and creating really good anchor content that is very evergreen and can be used over a long period of time. And you do invest in a writer to help you with that. You do invest in with somebody who can pull the best parts of the story out and help you craft it in a way that is truly meaningful for your audience. What are your thoughts about anchor content, that kind of a process versus, I know when people think of content, they think of whatever they're going to dump on social media this afternoon, but there's some things
Yeah.
that are deeper and better than that.
Yeah, I think really taking a step back and looking at content from the perspective of what are my 3 to 4 content pillars? What are the 3 to 4 umbrella topics that I want to talk about with my business? What's important that I communicate? And then underneath those 3 to 4 umbrellas, you have all of the different topic angles, the different things that you can talk about. Um, so a lot of that you can do through blog posts, which are great longer form content. There are people who think blog posts are dead. Not necessarily. Blog Having an active blog is great for your website. It's good for your SEO. It's a great way to just have some long form content on your website so that people, if they really want to dig in and learn more, they can find out more information. It's generosity with information about what you are offering and how you're solving solutions. It's case studies. It's sharing about those short transformation type stories that how you've helped people in some way, particularly if you're a service oriented type of company. I find those to be great anchor content. Um, as far as connecting from a relationship building perspective, I think email is still very important. Having those, sending out emails to your captive audience, people who've signed up for your list. Lead magnets can be great. And when I say lead magnet, that's an opt-in, like the freebie you get for the exchange of they give you your email, you give them a valuable piece of content that can help them maybe have a quick win. Those are things, and I think that's why I am a huge proponent of having your own website. I've seen a lot of businesses kind of move into just the rented space of social media and do all of their promotion and messaging there. I think social media, there's a place for that, but your website is your home. It's where it's your storefront, so to speak, in the virtual world. And that's really a great place to have all of that anchor content that just kind of lives there. So that's how I would approach that.
I think that's a great approach. And also, a couple of things I want to add in there. One, I think social media is very volatile. We're recording this in
Hmm.
2025 in the first part of the year. And I think social media is going through a transformation. And I don't think we know what that's going to completely look like yet. I don't think it's been decided. But I think that transformation has started. And I think the volatility makes it a place where you do not want to put all your eggs in that basket because of how volatile it is and how much it is shifting and changing. Not to say that you shouldn't do social media, but just like, let's not make that our only focus.
Right.
Um, and I think you said that very, very well. The other thing I want to encourage people to do, because writers need to be paid, and I'm a huge advocate for writers and photographers and creatives of all kind. There's so much talent out there. You're not going to get it from Chat GPT. You are not going to get it from Claude. Having a real writer that can sit with you, there's an extent that you can do with like tools, but having someone to help you be able to get through this process. I mean, even myself, who I consider myself an accomplished writer. I'm not a slack in that department. But having somebody help me on occasion is even important because I can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
But when we're thinking of anchor content, one of the things like pushbacks that I hear people say is writers are expensive. And by God, they should be, because it's a lot of effort and a lot of talent. And it's not talent that they honed over the last 6 months. It is decades of experience in order to be able to turn out the stories that they turn out. and they need to be compensated for that because trust me, they've invested time and effort in it. But as a small business owner, I think people struggle sometimes with paying for a really well qualified writer. And what I want to say is when you're looking at the content that Krista just listed out, this is stuff you're going to use over and over and over and over and over and over again. In other words, it's not just a one and done and today you use it and it's dead tomorrow. It's stuff that will continue to bring you in clients in the case of a lead magnet for years. And you can create 2 or 3 and rotate them through your system and utilize them repeatedly over time. And when we do that, the investment is a no-brainer, right? I mean, I think that's an important designation to make in this case. So if you're thinking, wow, this all sounds great, I'd love to have Krista help me build my story, but gee, that's going to cost a lot of money. I think that it should be. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, and I totally agree. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been offered exposure for my
Yeah.
writing, and I don't know any lawyers that
Yeah.
that take exposure for the cases they take on. But no, you're absolutely right. Creative work is hard work, and we do invest. Probably over the course of my career, I've invested thousands just in classes and coaching and learning my craft and getting better and better at my craft. Um, but I also empathize that it can be expensive to hire a writer. And I think sometimes, you don't necessarily have to have a writer come in and write everything original content for you. It could be that you have a lot of content already created and it can be repurposed in different ways. There's no reason why you can't take a piece of content and turn that into a video reel or into a YouTube video or, you know, tease out a blog post into a short email or, you know, if you have a testimonial, turn that into a case study. There's all of these different ways that you can repurpose the content you already have. And then if you're feeling like you're feeling a little maybe less than confident about what you're putting out there, you can always ask a writer or hire a writer to for sometimes it costs less. It sort of depends on the writer. I won't speak to for everyone, but just to proof it or do a developmental edit on it to take a look at it and give you some suggestions of where you could tighten up the content or make it so it's just a little more engaging to the person that they're trying to reach. I've done that before for particularly like with email campaigns. I've worked with a lot of people who are great writers, but it's like you were saying, they can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
And because we get so close to our business, even I get so close to my work. Like when I'm working on a fiction project right now, I still have my writing friends that I take stuff to and a writing coach to go through it and tell me what they're seeing that I can't see. So I think there's some value, even if you don't want to have somebody write something from the ground up, to take what you already have and see if they can just help you tweak it, make it stronger so that it is connecting or even rearranging content sometimes is all it takes.
Absolutely. So, Krista, everybody who comes on this podcast, I ask 2 questions of them. And the first question is around the tagline that is so important to me, and that is creating a business that supports the life you want to live. How does the business storytelling studio live that for you? How does that support the life that you want to live?
So I'm fortunate in many respects because I was able to build my business and grow it as my children grew. I have 2 sons, and I really started this business when they were about 4 and 2 years old. So my hands were full back then, but for whatever reason, I thought I should start a business too. But I did it in such a way where I was able to grow and expand at a rate that made sense for me at the time and slowly build and build and build. Um, the way that my business supports me is it allows me to not only and work with clients and help them, but also it helps support my passion for writing fiction that I'm really honing in on right now, and taking classes, doing things to strengthen my, further strengthen my skills as a writer and understanding content strategy and all of the things that make me a better business owner and can better support my clients. So that's the way I look at my business. It's really been a way to support my curiosity, my interests, my family, and it's kept me really active in the community. I just there's it's just I love being a business owner. It's a great experience.
Yeah, great. I love that too. I like the entrepreneurial lifestyle. My second question is around animals. And as you know, animals are a big part of my life. And I definitely have learned a lot of life and business lessons from the creatures that have shared my space on this ranch and in other places. Do you have an animal story you would share with us around an animal or group of animals that has impacted your life?
Well, I want to talk about two different animals that I would love to mention. The my main animal right now, his name is Dexter. He's a German Shepherd mix, and he's sort of my Velcro dog. He has been with me for over 12 years now, and he has fear-based aggression and anxiety. So I've really had to learn how to work with him to not only, keep people and other dogs safe, but also to make him feel secure. And one of the things I have learned along the way is just the power of exercise. He gets me out he is like a coach. If I'm thinking I don't want to go outside that day, he gets me outside. So he's become really a walking companion, and it helps with my own anxiety, or when I'm trying to have, brainstorm my way through a problem, just getting the leash on him and heading outside for a little while, getting some fresh air, no matter what time of the year it is, and no matter how much I want to kick and scream and not go because it's so cold outside. He gets me outside, and I think it's been really healthy for me. And because of the exercise is so good for his brain balance, it's good for my brain balance too. So that's one thing I really learned from him, is just that value of balance in my life and making sure I'm leaving my desk to solve problems in the fresh air. And then the other really memorable experience for me was when I got to come to your ranch. And what was it, last summer? I got to spend some time with King, your horse.
Yes.
And it was just an amazing experience doing that equine gestalt, because I realized it took me a while to really process what had happened, just going and spending time with him and answering the questions that you shared to answer. And there were things I didn't really even realize I needed to dig into that I king, as he was able to call me on my own BS. And I think just going through that process, I walked away feeling, as I reflected on it, just I felt so much clearer about a lot of things, because I was able to put a lot of that stuff just behind me from my past that I didn't even know could have been weighing me down. So that was a really powerful experience. And I would highly encourage anybody who's interested at all or loves horses, even if, it's just it was a nourishing experience. And I'm really glad I did it.
That is awesome, and I will pass along the accolades to Mr. King.
Yes,
He is a pretty cool dude.
he's beautiful.
I get to have a blessing that I get to share my life with so many of these guys that are talk about sage wisdom. In my hero's journey, there's a lot of horses that share that space, and they definitely lend that out to others as well. So, Krista, you did tell me that you are taking some new clients. If somebody did want to work with you around content creation, content sort of writing, and also I also want to mention you also have a program for speakers to help them figure out their really important story to tell up on this stage called Spellbound. Do you do that for individuals or is that only a group experience?
Spellbound is a group experience, and I have not relaunched that yet. But I do work one on one with business owners who would like help crafting their presentation to take to speak to groups. I know there's a lot of people who are really trying to build their speaker platform, and for me, that's a lot of fun to really coach them on getting stronger in front of an audience and really developing those key stories to tell and the messaging, what they want to communicate during that presentation. So, yes, I do some presentation consulting as well. And I love doing that. That's a lot of fun.
So how would someone find you and work with you?
So, the best way to find me is on my website. It's christamhines.com. Or you can email me. And I don't know, you want to put that in the show
I'll
notes
put
or?
both your website and your email in the show notes so people can grab it, and reach out to you. And you also have some public places that you publish, one of which is your Substack.
Yes.
So you were my first Substack follow. So I'm
Yay.
and so that is Word Energy on Substack. Did I get that right?
Correct. Word
Cool.
Energy by Christa M. Hines.
Perfect. So now you have some places to contact Krista at if you're interested in working on your presentation, or you're interested in maybe upping your game around the storytelling and your content. Krista is your girl. Do reach out. And Krista, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a blast. I love being able to go into the Star Wars metaphor with somebody for the hero's journey. That's the highlight of my day today.
I know, that was fun. I can't help it. I've watched so many Star Wars films.
I
Thank you,
adore
Kim.
it.
This was so much fun.
Awesome. All right, you guys, I'll see you next Tuesday.